Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you an approach for mixing screaming vocals to get them sounding way heavier and way more brutal than they actually are. So you can hear those raw screams just don't cut it. They do not have the excitement and the energy and the brutalness needed to cut through in this mix. So let me run you through the processing that I used to get these to really stand out and have way more aggression than what's actually delivered in the performance. Okay, so let's solo this out, have a listen to the raw vocal and then the processed vocal, and then I'll take you through the steps I took to get it there. So a massive difference, and you can hear there's a lot more saturation and excitement in our processed vocal. Whereas the raw vocal, it's a little too dynamic, sort of like jumps in and out of the mix. It's sort of like inconsistent level wise, and it just sounds a little bit dark and muffled really. So let's take a look at what I've done to add a bit of life to this. Okay, so the very first thing in our screaming vocal chain is just a stock standard Logic EQ with a high pass filter up to 152 Hertz with an 18 decibel octave. This is basically just to get rid of any rumble and any possible plosives that could have hit the mic during tracking. And then after this, I'm following it up with JST's gain reduction. And if you've watched a couple of my other videos, you would know that I like to use this when going for a more aggressive vocal sound. And so in this case for screams, this is typically the plugin that I reach for first, because I know it's going to get me pretty close to what I want to hear straight away. Basically just an aggressive compressor. So you can hear it adds a lot of excitement and just compresses it really nicely. Basically the sleigh is kind of the threshold, and I usually like screams anywhere between sort of like 4 to 8 dBs of gain reduction. Like that feels pretty good to me. And then our body just adjusts kind of like the low end in the vocal. So have a listen to what it sounds like when we play up this. So if you have a vocal that sounds too thick, or maybe they're too close to the mic, you'd maybe bring that over to the left more to kind of thin it out. And if the vocal sounds too thin, bring it over to the right and add a little bit of low end back into the vocal. So just a nice quick way to sort of balance out the tone a bit. And lastly, the mix knob's pretty important in this plugin because it's so aggressive. I generally do roll the mix knob back a little bit to find that sweet spot. And for screams, it's generally around sort of like 60 to 70%. Yeah, so I really like that, kind of around 70% there. And that's everything that this plugin is doing. Now we're going to follow this up with an EQ. So we've just got a low pass filter at 16K, and it's just pretty sharp with a 24 dB octave. We're just rolling off those ultra high frequencies in the screams. And then we have a little bit of a cut around 510 Hertz. So have a listen to this. So I'm just doing a bit of a cut at 510 Hertz to just get rid of some mids that are kind of cluttering up this vocal and making it sound not as clear as it could be. So it sounds a lot better to me. Now, the next thing we're going to add is decapitator. So this is where the aggression is coming in. Now, the big thing that we have going on here is we have the punish button engaged. So I'll show you what it sounds like if we don't have this turned on versus when it's on. It's just way more brutal when you have that punish button engaged. So we have the drive at about 4.5, and then a bit of a roll off on the low end, so up to about 80 hertz. I'm pushing the tone more towards the bright side because I want to add a little bit more excitement to the vocal as opposed to trying to warm it up. The high cut is around 16.7K, so it's not doing much really. It's just taking away the really, really high end out of this distortion. And then our mix knob is sitting at 50%. So have a listen to it 100% because it is pretty crazy. So hectic. So we turn this all the way over to the left. You could just sit there, play it through, and just bring it in until you find that sweet spot. So around 50% sounds pretty good to me, and especially once you have everything around it, like all the guitars and that, even though it still sounds pretty heavy on the distortion at 50%, once it's sort of covered with the mix, it's not as noticeable. And then I'm following this up with some de-essing. So basically I'm using Pro MB as a de-esser, which is just multi-band compression. And this is the de-esser default in vocals. And then I have just pulled the range down a little bit more to around minus 12 dB. And then I just played with the threshold to get the amount of de-essing that I wanted to have happening. So it just helps rein in those S's and T's and stop the vocal from getting too harsh sounding. Now in this particular mix, I have all the screams going to a screams group, and on that group, I have a Pultec EQ, and I'm just boosting 8K up to around 2. So it's just adding a little bit more excitement to the vocal. It's subtle because we're not boosting a heavy amount in here, but it is adding a little bit of sparkle to it. And then I also have a Logic channel EQ, and I'm just doing a minus 2 dB cut with a really wide bell at 336 hertz. And that's just cleaning up the low mids a little bit, making the vocal sound a bit more exciting, and also helping it to sit in the mix a bit better. So that's really helping the vocal sit in the mix nicely. And I also put a high pass filter on here because I could see there was a little bit of rumble going on. So whether that was bringing up the noise floor a little bit with gain reduction and decapitator. So I've just done a high pass filter on the group just to try and make sure we don't get any unnecessary rumble coming through. Now, one other thing that I have going on here is I have a send off of our Scream bus, and that is going to a send that has a micro shift on it. So we have these settings, 100% wet, the focus to 170 hertz, style 3, a little bit of detune, and quite a bit of looseness. And this is basically kind of adding sort of like a double track chorusy kind of effect to it, because on this particular song we don't have any double tracks, so I'm kind of faking the effect a little bit by using micro shift subtly on the vocal. So have a listen to that. So it definitely helps add a little bit more excitement to the vocal again. Okay, so let's compare our raw sound to our process sound again and just see how much aggression and power we've given to these screams. Massive difference. And then of course you can go ahead and add all the fun stuff like reverb delay, a little bit of slap delay can sound really great on screams. But as far as getting the aggression and the excitement out of the vocal, that's one way I'd go about processing screams that need a little bit of life given to them. So a fun fact, this is actually from a mixing course that I'm working on at the moment, where we take the raw tracks from this session, drop them in, mix them from start to finish to get it to where it's sounding right now. So if that interests you guys, make sure you keep an eye out for that because that's going to be coming out pretty soon. So I hope you guys picked up a couple of tricks from this video. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on that notification bell. And if you want to support this channel, make sure you check out the description below where you can go to my website and check out my drum samples. And if you're interested in knowing how I like to mix rock vocals, then make sure you stick around and check out this next video.